I want to talk to you about a topic that, honestly, it's in our modern culture, the way things have been going in these years, these recent years. It's something that's been coming into my consciousness and that of a lot of fellow teachers. And that's the notion of the three poisons. I mentioned that earlier, the three poisons. It sounds very exciting. And it is, frankly. So I'll just back up for a minute and say, so sitting, meditation, observing our thoughts, this is all very helpful. And it's a very important muscle we build. But we're opening ourselves. And the Buddhist canon has these tremendous guideposts for us once we've developed some capacity for just awareness of what's going on, once we've sort of stepped out of this trance, if you will, of just getting so absorbed into everything that we think and feel. So as soon as we have a little bit of distance, there's a large body of work on understanding what it is that causes us to suffer and how we can release ourselves from that suffering. The Four Noble Truths are, in brief, number one, the first noble truth is there is suffering. Number two, there is a cause, or there are causes for our suffering. Number three, the cessation of suffering. There's a way to stop the suffering, to be free of suffering. And the fourth noble truth is what's known as the Eightfold Noble Path, which is very rich in teachings, which we'll look at. The first noble truth is, so say you want to make lemon water, that refreshing drink. You can go to the store and buy lemons, but you need to go to the store and buy lemons, but you bring them home, you don't eat them as they are because they're sour. It's too much to eat a wedge of lemon or eat a whole lemon straight. But since you want to make this refreshing drink, you don't skip going to the store to buy the lemons, right? You need them. You know the nature of the lemon. You know its sourness. You accept that the lemon is this way. And with this knowledge of the sourness of the lemon, you can make something that's very refreshing, very nourishing, right? This is the way with suffering. In order to experience the refreshing quality of life, you have to know the nature of the sourness of your life. Yet, people want to make lemonade without lemons. People want only happiness, and they refuse to acknowledge their sorrows. They spend so much time running after pleasures and transient feel good moments that just slip away. Since they don't know how to hold their suffering with skill, they can't access this deeper, truer sense of happiness and contentment. So the second noble truth says there is a cause for our suffering. If you want to hold your suffering skillfully, if you want to do that, you have to understand the causes of it. When you see the causes of it, then you can transform it. I think of it like a person who's walking down the street and they see a vicious dog, but in order to get where they're going, they have to pass this vicious dog. And as they get closer, it's very scary. The dog is snarling and growling. But as they get closer, they can see that the dog's foot is trapped in a trap. Maybe it's caught in a trap. So the dog's in a lot of pain. And with that new understanding, the person feels compassion. It's a whole different set of feelings and thoughts that come up. So one of the core teachings in the Buddhist canon is the three poisons. And it was developed to help us understand our suffering. They're also, it's also called the three fires, maybe the three unwholesome roots. But the three poisons works. And the three poisons really are the three main negative qualities of mind that cause our problems and most of the problems in the world. And so understanding these and becoming aware of them in ourselves is a door to releasing from them, right? If you have a shelf with a bunch of bottles and you don't know what's in them and you're taking drinks from them all, you might get sick. But if you know what's in each one, you can make good choices, so to speak. So the three poisons are greed, hatred, and delusion. And I'll explain. Greed, hatred, and delusion. So greed refers to our selfishness, our misplaced desires, overly attached mindsets, grasping for happiness and satisfaction outside of ourselves. Hatred refers to our anger, our aversion to unpleasant people, our revulsion of unpleasant circumstances, aversion to our own uncomfortable feelings inside of us. That's hatred. And delusion refers to our dullness, maybe. It's our bewilderment, our misperceptions, our wrong views of reality. So greed, hatred, and delusion. So these three poisons, everyone has the three poisons in themselves. We all do. It's like chlorine in the tap water, right? Chlorine is a poison, but a small amount is harmless. And in fact, I would say that some manner of greed, hatred, and delusion is a natural and necessary way to navigate through life. But the amount needed of the poisons is tiny, trace amounts, and most people have too much of the poisons in them, and they suffer greatly. Too much of the greed, hatred, and delusion, and it not only causes us to suffer, but it also it spreads out into the world, into society, right? So I'll just explain a little bit further. So greed is also referred to as lust. It's also referred to as hungry grasping. And it's this quality of never having enough, never being satisfied, constant improvement, perhaps. Maybe the person who's afflicted with that is, unable to find the cutest pair of shoes and keeps getting another pair. Or just waiting for the next beautiful day. Not happy with the rainy day, or just waiting for the next vacation, something like that. Those are behaviors that seem so normal, but it's really a poison. When you're poisoned that way, you are cut off from life. Like, you're not able to appreciate the comfortable shoes that are on your feet that you already have. You're not able to appreciate the peacefulness of a rainy day, the quietness, that lowered energy. Because lowered energy is just as important as heightened energy. They're like the left and the right. You need them both to be living a wholesome life. And if you're maybe always wanting to be going on vacation, you can never really be comfortable at home, appreciating the beautiful home that you're in now. So this is a manifestation. These are gentle manifestations of greed. Of course, there's far more extreme cases. Huge corporations led by people who have so many billions of dollars available, and yet it's never enough. So, and that causes a lot of pain. Hatred, otherwise known as aversion, sometimes referred to as anger or ill will, is this quality of wanting to avoid or resist or deny situations, people, anything we don't like. Cancel culture is a perfect example of this. We don't agree with what you're saying. You are clearly wrong. We're going to cancel you out of our existence here. That's an example of the poison of hatred. Another example is someone who's frozen in action. We all have those experiences when you're so worried about the bad things that might happen that you don't do anything at all. Right? That's a form of hatred, aversion. Assuming people will be against us in situations. Obviously, wishing harm to others, wanting revenge, things like that. So that's the second poison. And the third is delusion and or ignorance. Delusion. And delusion is really it's just a lack of understanding of just the true nature of ourselves, of life, how the world works. Just maybe being so caught up in your own stories and your own frame of reference that there's no seeing clearly of anything. Maybe it's like driving around in a foreign country without a map. You're just completely lost. Not even beginning to understand the first noble truth that there is suffering. And again, we all have, I always like to think that I have to delude myself to a certain extent to just get by. But so long as it's conscious, so long as there's awareness. So maybe, think about your own life and situations when you've been infected, so to speak, with one of the three poisons. Reflect back and think about how that feels. And maybe that's something to to carry with you. So each one of us, by nature, this is a very interesting fact, each one of us has, so these three poisons are floating around, and as we develop our awareness, we start to see how they come into our life. And if you pay attention, you'll notice each of us has one that's a little bit stronger than the others, right? I personally am a greed manifester. And I'm definitely not a greedy person. Nobody would ever characterize me that way. But my awareness has shown me that a lot of my own suffering comes from this natural energy of greed. For instance, I don't do it anymore, but I used to go for walks in the neighborhood. And as a designer, as working with architects for a long time, I was remodeling everybody's house as I walked. And I was changing the colors on everyone's house so that they would be beautiful. And that's a form of greed, a form of wanting, hungry quality, not being satisfied, wanting to improve everyone's home. It is kind of a funny story, but in fact, it isn't a pleasant way to take a walk when you really reflect on it. Because there's beauty to behold everywhere. One doesn't need to be constantly improving. So think about yourself and where your natural tendency runs. Now, the good news is there's a couple pieces of good news. Number one is that as soon as we know that these energies, as soon as we've sort of got an understanding of these energies and become aware of them and become sensitive to them, they start to lose their power over us. Just that awareness is enough. So building our awareness and building our understanding of these negative mental energies, just that is enough to move the dial, so to speak. The other good news is that these negative mental energies are balanced by three equally positive mental energies. And part of our work then becomes to nurture the ones that we want to grow, like gardeners. We have all the seeds in us of all these things. Which ones are we going to fertilize and water? So the three poisons are opposed by three wholesome mental states. Greed is the antidote. They call it the antidote. Antidote to greed is generosity. So when we practice selfless service to others, also known as dana, the antidote to hatred is loving kindness, metta, which we'll be doing in future classes. Metta is a beautiful practice. It's very nourishing. And the antidote to delusion is wisdom. So delusion dissipates when we practice mindfulness and meditation, when we understand our experience as it really is, rather than with our fears and desires clouding our perceptions. So it's hopeful that we have things that we can do. There's a lot that we can do.